payments in order time and how we can set it up. We've recently kind of improved that section dramatically, and there's a lot of tools that you can use that we've added, some reporting features as well. Just a little kind of background. Obviously, you know, most users are using QuickBooks, and to be clear, QuickBooks is still the master accounts receivable, because that's really, you know, where all the financial data is. But having the payments and the ability to do payments within order time provides, you know, more visibility into kind of the status of invoices and payments without having to go into QuickBooks. But still, the master accounts receivable is always going to be the accounting system. So I wanted to make that clear, but we do our best to kind of synchronize now the invoices and the payments. So even if you're making the payments inside of your QuickBooks, we're still going to kind of pull that in, and so anybody using and looking at a ship doc can see that it's been paid or unpaid, or if it's a customer return, whether it's been refunded or applied to another transaction. All right, so just for demo purposes, we're going to go ahead and just start a new customer here. So we'll just call it Dean Co. here. And I'm going to go to the payments and kind of, you know, show you a little bit about what's available. So here we have an account number. Here we have a credit limit that you can input. This one over here is called hold orders, and if a customer has hold orders on, you can create a sales order, but you can't create a ship doc. You can't actually approve the order at all. So if you're doing a credit review and one of your customers is late and you want to make sure that no one ships another invoice until you uncheck this, then you would go and do that. So I'm just going to save this real quick. I'll come back. Okay, I'll come back to that. So I'll just demonstrate that. I'll just pick any customer over here. And let's say it's this one over here. So hold orders. All right. Save. And if I want to create a new sales order, we'll see that right here it says hold orders. And then we add an item. If I attempt to approve this order, it'll go back to on credit hold. So there's no way to create a ship doc for that. Now, if I go ahead and edit that, and they've now paid their bills, I can come back in here. Yep, press save. Go back to the sales order, and it's been cleared. And so now we can change the status to approved. Okay. All right. So back to this company, this customer I created. Payment methods. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about payment methods. So I'm going to go open the admin section, profile lists, and we're going to go to payment methods, which are under the sales. And what I want to point out about the payment method are a couple of things. Firstly, the tender type. So the tender type, cash or check, basically toggles whether we should enter a credit card or not. It's pretty simple. And then these two are optionals if you have more than one accounts receivable or deposit account, and for a specific payment method, you wanted to go to a specific AR account or deposit account, then you can set that here. Okay. So for example, if you want everything to always go to undeposited funds, you would put that in here. And then some companies have 2 or 3 different accounts receivable. So, you can set that as well. Another important profile list is that comes into payment are the terms. And so most of you kind of understand the payment terms. I want to kind of talk a little bit about the payment type. And there are 5 different types, and kind of a business rule that you can implement that allows you to kind of put a hold on certain orders if they're not paid, or shipments if they're not paid. So for example, pay on order, I have full payment on order over here. Okay. So if I add a sales order, or I'll go back to this sales order over here. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to change the terms to pay on order. Now, again, if I try to change the status to approved, it'll say payment pending. That means I'm going to be forced to add a payment. Now it gets approved. So by using the terms, you can kind of control, make sure that a ship dock or a shipment is not made without, doing a payment, or an order is not made. And so you can take partial payments as well. So those are 2 very important things. Now, obviously, for each customer, you can set the terms and the payment method. Okay. You can also make sure that if you have sales reps and you're concerned about them changing the terms, you can leverage the roles. So I'm going to go to roles here, and I'll go to my sales rep role. And you'll notice on the sales side that I added an exception for terms, meaning, so I add an exception this way, meaning that they can, this sales rep role can view the terms, but they cannot change them. Okay. Same thing, obviously, for their own sales rep. And here, of course, the sales rep cannot approve an order. They can view it, but they cannot approve it, create, or edit. So we can, using order time, we can really control, who has the capability of changing or designing how, when and where the payments are made, and at what point they're made, with a combination of terms, payment methods, and roles, and of course the statuses. Okay. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and just create a new sales order. All right. Now, before I go ahead in that, let me do a couple of other things. In our system, you can accept credit cards, and there's really 2 ways to accept credit cards. You can just put the credit card in, and you would process it. So in order to process credit cards, you would need to get one of our approved gateways. So again, I go to profile lists, and I go to payment gateways. And here I have a couple of gateways that I've created. Okay. One of them is called US, and one of them is authorized.net. And I can add as many as I want. Right now we have authorized.net, BluePay, QuickBooks Merchant Services, which is actually going through a change right now, QuickBooks Payments, which we're doing as well, and the US ePay. Right? So I've created this over here. I've entered my merchant. It's a test account, so I've entered my merchant, etc. And I put in a default sale type. So we don't authorize, we just do a straight sale. Although you could authorize and then capture later on, and I'll show you, we'll show you how to do that. The default payment method, and this is used if you use to send payment requests to your customers. You can do that, and then what the gateway type is and name of the gateway, whether it's default. Okay. All right, so let's go back and create a new sales order. All right, so there's my sales order. Put in the customer PO. And I'll put in an item here. Okay, so there's the item over here. And let's just put in quantity of that and make it a straight 1250 and taxable. Okay. Okay. Ship amount. Typical order. Okay. All right, so now we want to get a payment. So we basically go to the payment screen and we can say add a payment. All right. And here is the credit card. So I'm going to put credit card. There's my gateway. And just for right now, it's saying the transaction type is sale. That means it's going to process and capture the sale, or I can just authorize it right now. It's saying sale because by default, this gateway uses. So I can see if I change my gateway to QB Payments, it defaults to authorize. I'm going to go to that. So now if I had the credit card number stored at the company, it would put that in. So I'm just going to put that in 1234, 1234, 1234, 1234. And so maybe I'm just doing this for the first time. Okay. CVV code. The CVV code is the only thing that you have to enter all the time. And if I'm doing this for the first time, I can check this little box to update the credit card info for the company. All right. So now, as you can see, I have a paid sales order. All right. Can navigate and see all the payments from the payments and refunds list. So here are all the payments and the payments and refunds list. Okay. You'll also be able to see the so you can edit it as well. There's the accounts. All right. Now, what I wanted to show you as well is that from the customer, you can also see the payments and refunds as well, and then create a new payment right from here as well. Right. So now, let's say this customer put something on account for you, all right? And there's no transaction from which to post, because they just say, you know what, I want to put something on account with you, or maybe they have a credit balance or whatever. So I can create a payment. So I'm going to go ahead and go new payment. And I can create a payment. I'm just going to do it cash so I don't have to enter all the credit card information, but the idea is the same. And I can just create a payment just like so, without applying it to anything. Okay. So now I have a payment, and essentially what I have here is a customer that has a credit balance. Right. And So now if I want, I'm going to go ahead for Dean and create another sales order. Oops, I'm going to create another sales order. All right. So assuming I can click, I know that they have, I can go apply credit and I'll see that I can apply a certain amount of this sales order to the payment that I already got. Now the other thing that we could do, you can see here I have a request for payment button. And what that allows me to do is that instead of sending an email or whatnot, I can send a request for payment to the customer, and they'll get an email that they can then put in their credit card information. To set that up, you go into company preferences and you go to payments and you enable the send payment. Okay. One other thing about the credit card, by default, the credit cards are masked. So make sure, and this is a good security, we always encrypt the credit card when we store it in a database, but it's also kind of for display purposes also a good idea to do that. There's also some preferences in terms of when you're processing your credit card, what information is required on the input form. Okay. So if I go to the ship doc and go request payment, something will pop up here, and I'm going to use my ship doc payment email. And this little link, you don't want to remove that. You want to keep it there because that's what's actually going to create a put in a link. So I get something that looks like this. I click on it, and here's all the information that. Notice how the credit card number is already in there. If all this was if all this was already in the customer, it would all come in. So credit card expired. So now that payment has been received. You can see the payment has been received, and then we could ship it. Okay. When you receive a payment on a ship doc, it automatically goes back to the appropriate sales order as well. One of the reports that we added, some of the information that we added to the reports can give you some details on the payments. So I don't know if I've created any of those. Yeah. All right. So the report source that we added is called Customer Ledger. There it is. And the customer ledger is just simply all the payments. So typically I would add, the customer, and it can add, all sorts of other information. But in a basic way, I would put in the customer name. So that's that. And I would make that a section. And then I would put the customer ledger. So we've got the date, the doc number, the amount. Okay. And if I summarize this amount, I should get, something that looks like the open balance per customer. Now they could be in a credit balance as well. So this is all the ledger transactions related to that particular thing. Just customize this thing one more time. Customer ledger, let's put in the tran type. So tran type, date, amount. Right. So you can see all this information here. I can always click in here and go to the actual underlying document. So that's a very useful report. Again, just basically what I did is add these two use the customer ledger order source. I added these two tables. I added the customer full name. I made it a section, and I just added these three. And then for amount, I summed it, and now I have it. I have everything for that customer. Okay. So I'm going to open it up to a few questions now. Please go ahead. I apologize for that error. We'll take a look at it as soon as possible. It's probably something very minor. But if you have any questions about payments, how to process a payment, etc. All right, I'm going to show one more kind of example in terms of this payment here, that I can create a refund for this payment, or any payment for that matter. So let's say I want to do a partial refund. I'm going to refund $400 and apply it to this. So only now that payment will be for $100 basically. You can see now that we've actually applied $400 refund to this payment. So the only thing that we can apply remaining is $100 to whatever. Now you can see I can do now partial refunds. Before you couldn't do any partial refunds. You can also void a transaction within a normal period of time. So if you have a new payment, pick the payment method. And I'm going to just authorize it. All right, I'm not going to capture it or sale. Right, so there's our payment. Now you can see here I can capture, meaning I can create it into a sale, or I can void it. Right, so that's it. Now voiding it just basically sets everything to 0.
All right, we have a couple questions, and the first one was, is there a setting to have customers go on hold automatically on a certain number of days past due?
No, but we're looking into making the credit limit something that is more live based on a preference. So based on a credit limit, if they're over a certain credit limit, then we're going to add the preference to say, if a customer is in excess of a certain credit limit, put them on credit hold automatically. So that's the functionality we're working on.
All right. With the approved gateways, do you have any pricing structures or partnerships set up with them for OT customers, or do you have suggested contacts that they reach out to?
The best, we don't have a partnership, anything in particular. You know, my go-to is always authorized.net because they're, you know, they have a very good pricing structure, and they integrate with almost every merchant service. So I like authorized.net, obviously Payflow, and QuickBooks is also updating their payment gateway. So we're implementing obviously the payment gateway with QuickBooks.
The next question is, what syncs to QBO? The payments, undeposited funds, batch deposits. How would you record the batch deposits in OrderTime or QBO?
In QBO or QuickBooks Desktop?
This
QuickBooks
is specifically about QBO.
in QBO, what we pull down from QBO are the payments. So you know, this thing over here, there's a record type in QuickBooks called receive payment. So we don't touch the deposits, we just look at this receive payments. Now, if it so happens that QuickBooks creates a receive payment transaction for a deposit, you know, instead of going to receive payment, you go in here and you do bank deposit. I believe that, well, these are already payments that have been received. So the idea basically is that if you wanted to, if you do it to undeposited funds, you know, the normal structure is you receive payment and you do it to undeposited funds. And so this is what we get. We don't get the deposits. And as you can see, when you do the deposits, it's already going off of the received payments. So these are already received payments, right? So if I'm doing a deposit, I just check that. So all of these we don't get this at all. We want to know relating to a customer, not necessarily to an account. If that answers your, I hope that answers your question.
To clarify, we record the deposits directly in QBO, right?
You create a payment to undeposited funds, and then when you do the deposit, you'll see all the undeposited funds. So you do the payment, and the account that you should use, remember we set up the payment, either the term or the payment method, whichever one, you know, you so desire. Maybe let's say the payment method. So under payment method, I can say I want to always put it to undeposited funds. Okay. So what will happen is in QBO, let me use my QBO. In QBO, you'll see them all in the transactions and, you know, everything else that happens. So here's a payment that we added, right? We applied it to one of the invoices, right? That was from the ship doc, right? So that will go in and it will debit undeposited funds. And then when you're ready to do the actual deposit of money, you go to bank deposit, right? And then you check off which one of these, you know, you want to apply it, the deposits to. So there is that ship doc dollar. So here's all my ones that I want to do a deposit for, including the let's say the credit. So this is actually a refund. So we can also do that. Go save and close. Okay. So OrderTime really doesn't do anything with bank deposits in QuickBooks. It just goes off the receipt payments.
But is there any setting to automatically apply customer deposits to a sales order or invoice before payments?
No, it has to be.
Okay.
You have to apply credit, and unfortunately, I couldn't modify or show you that. But basically, once you receive a payment, you apply a credit
Hmm.
to the sales order. Or sorry, once you do a new ship doc, you can check if there's any, applied credits. If not, you take the payment. Otherwise, you apply the credit.
Gotcha. Yeah, and they said that's fine, and I think that's the final question.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us today. I do appreciate that, and thank you.